"Sir, can I play for food?" The question hung in the cold Manhattan air outside the prestigious Greenwich Chess Club, where men in $1,000 suits analyzed games through floor-to-ceiling windows while sipping imported scotch. 42-year-old Naomi Pierce sat on the concrete steps in clothes that hadn't been washed in a week, her chess pieces, scavenged from a thrift store, arranged carefully in a plastic Ziploc bag beside her. She'd asked 17 people that question tonight. 16 had walked past like she didn't exist. One had told her to get a job. The 18th person stopped. Not out of kindness, but curiosity. Carter Whitmore, hedge fund manager, club champion 3 years running, owner of a penthouse worth more than most people earned in a lifetime, looked down at Naomi with the expression of someone who just spotted an interesting insect. "Did you just ask to play chess for food?" His voice carried that particular brand of amusement wealthy people reserved for poverty they found entertaining. If you've ever been dismissed because of how you looked, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. "Yes, sir." Naomi's voice was quiet, steady. "One game. If I win, you buy me dinner. If you win, I leave and don't come back." Carter laughed. Actually laughed. Loud enough that 3 other club members came outside to see what was funny. "Gentlemen," Carter announced. "This woman wants to play me for a sandwich. Should I indulge her?" "Come on, Carter, let's go inside," one of them started. "No, no. This is perfect." Carter pulled out his phone, already recording. "Entertainment for the evening. Plus, it'll make a great story at the office. That time I played chess against a homeless hustler." The other men laughed. Naomi didn't. She just pulled her chess pieces from the Ziploc bag, half of them mismatched, one pawn clearly from a different set entirely, and began setting up her side of the board on the cold concrete step. Carter made a show of it. He called more people outside. Set up the board on the club's marble entrance table so the growing crowd could watch from the warmth of the doorway. He ordered his pieces arranged with theatrical precision, each piece placed with a little flourish. "I'll even give you white," Carter said magnanimously, like he was doing charity work. "First move advantage. Let's see what you've got." Naomi moved her king's pawn forward 2 squares. Standard opening. Nothing flashy. Carter responded with the Sicilian defense, a sharp, aggressive response designed to create immediate complications. He wanted to overwhelm her quickly, make the game spectacular for his audience. "So how long have you been homeless?" Carter asked as Naomi studied the board. "Trying to hustle chess players for meals. That's a new one. Usually it's the 3-card Monte guys doing the sidewalk scams." Naomi didn't respond. She moved her knight. Carter's smile faltered slightly. That was the right move. Not the move a beginner would make. The move someone who understood chess theory would make. He pushed forward anyway, developing his pieces aggressively, talking to the crowd about strategy like he was teaching a masterclass. "See, what she doesn't understand is that the Sicilian creates asymmetrical pawn structures that favor the player with better tactical vision." Naomi moved her bishop. Carter stopped mid-sentence. That bishop placement wasn't in any beginner's playbook. It was preparing something. Something he couldn't quite see yet. "Interesting," he muttered, his showman persona slipping. He spent 30 seconds analyzing the board before making his next move. The crowd had grown to about 15 people now. Some were recording on their phones. Most expected this to be over quickly, a demolition they could laugh about later. But something was shifting. Naomi played with absolute silence. No trash talk. No facial expressions. Just move after move, each one precise, each one forcing Carter into slightly more uncomfortable positions. By move 12, Carter's smile had vanished completely. By move 15, he was sweating despite the November cold. "She's playing a Queen's Gambit variation," someone in the crowd whispered. "I've never seen this line before." It's ancient, another voice said. This hasn't been played competitively since the 80s. Carter looked up at Naomi for the first time with something other than contempt. Where did you learn to play? Naomi didn't answer. She moved her queen. Carter stared at the board. His position was collapsing. Every move he'd made, aggressive, confident, designed to overwhelm, had been quietly neutralized. He was losing. To a homeless woman. On a sidewalk. In front of a crowd that had their phones out. Subscribe now because what happens next will shock you. Where are you watching from? Comment below. He tried to salvage it. Launched a desperate attack on Naomi's king. It looked dangerous. The crowd murmured, thinking Carter had found a way out. Naomi sacrificed a rook. The crowd gasped. It looked like suicide. Like she'd blundered under pressure. But 3 moves later, they understood. The rook sacrifice had opened a line for her remaining pieces that Carter couldn't defend against. His king was trapped behind his own pawns. His queen was out of position. His knights couldn't get back in time. Checkmate in 3, someone in the crowd said quietly. She's got forced checkmate in 3 moves. Carter saw it too. His face went red. His hands hovered over his pieces, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Move 1. Naomi's bishop slid into position. Move 2. Carter's only legal move, desperately blocking. Move 3. Naomi's queen delivered checkmate. The crowd erupted. Not in laughter this time. In shock. In appreciation. Several people were already pulling up YouTube, searching for analysis of the variation she'd played. Carter stood up slowly, his face a mixture of humiliation and rage. He pulled out his wallet, threw a $50 bill on the board. Buy yourself a meal and a shower, he said coldly. And don't come back here. He stormed inside. His friends followed, embarrassed on his behalf. The crowd began to disperse, some glancing back at Naomi with new curiosity, most just glad they'd witnessed something they could tell their friends about. Naomi carefully packed her mismatched chess pieces back into the Ziploc bag. The $50 bill sat untouched on the board. She'd won. She'd get to eat tonight. Maybe tomorrow too if she was careful. But victory felt hollow. Because this was her life now. Hustling chess games for meal money outside clubs she used to dominate from the inside. Begging for the chance to prove her worth to people who saw her as entertainment, not competition. She was reaching for the money when a voice spoke behind her in Russian-accented English. I know who you are. Naomi froze. An elderly white man in an expensive wool coat stood there, probably 70, with sharp eyes that had watched the entire match from the edge of the crowd. You're Naomi Pierce, he continued, switching to perfect English. You were a chess prodigy. Youngest woman ever to reach international master status at 16. Then you disappeared 11 years ago. Everyone in the chess world wondered what happened to you. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, turned it around. Naomi stared at the screen. At an image she hadn't seen in over a decade. Her 16-year-old self, holding a trophy almost as big as her torso, smiling with the confidence of someone who believed the world was full of possibilities. What happened to you? The man asked, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. How did you go from that to? He gestured at her current state. Naomi grabbed her chess pieces, shoved the $50 bill in her pocket, and ran. She didn't stop running until she reached the subway station 3 blocks away, her breath coming in gasps, tears she refused to cry burning her eyes. Because she knew that man. Knew his voice. Knew exactly who he was. Viktor Sokolov. The grandmaster who'd trained her. The man who'd forced her to choose between chess greatness and her family. The man who destroyed her life trying to save her career. And now he'd found her again. Naomi didn't go back to the Greenwich Chess Club for 3 days. She moved through Manhattan like a ghost, sleeping at the women's shelter on East 30th Street, eating at the soup kitchen on 23rd, spending daylight hours in public libraries where security guards wouldn't kick her out as long as she pretended to read. But everywhere she went, she felt Victor's eyes on her. That photo on his phone haunted her. The girl she used to be, holding that trophy like it meant everything. Back when winning felt like destiny instead of cruel irony. On the 4th morning, the shelter coordinator stopped her after breakfast. "Someone left an envelope for you at the front desk. Yesterday afternoon." Naomi's stomach dropped. "Who?" "Older gentleman. Foreign accent. Said it was important." The envelope was cream-colored, expensive. Heavy paper stock that wealthy people used because they could. Her name written in precise handwriting across the front, Naomi Pierce. She almost threw it away without opening it. Instead, she found a corner of the shelter's common room and tore it open. A cashier's check fell out. Made out to her name. For $10,000. Naomi stared at the zeros like they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. $10,000. More money than she'd seen in 6 years combined. Beneath the check was a handwritten note on matching stationery. "Naomi. I'm hosting a private chess tournament next weekend at a location I'll share if you agree to participate. 8 players. Winner takes $500,000. I want you to play. You were the most talented student I ever trained. What happened 11 years ago was tragic, but it doesn't erase what you are, a chess prodigy who walked away from greatness. Come back. Not for me. For yourself. The check is yours regardless of your decision. Consider it payment for a debt I should have settled years ago. Viktor Sokolov." If someone from your past offered you everything you lost, would you trust them? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Naomi read the note 3 times. Each time, rage built hotter in her chest. Victor thought he could fix 11 years of hell with a check and an invitation. Thought he could erase what he'd done with money and false kindness. She remembered the last time they'd spoken. She'd been 17 years old, standing in his Upper East Side apartment, her mother dead 3 weeks, her 14-year-old brother Marcus waiting in the hallway. "You have a choice," Victor had said, his voice calm, rational. "Continue to waste your potential caring for your brother, or let the state handle Marcus's care while you train for grandmaster status. I can arrange a good facility. He'll be fine. He's not going to a facility. He's my brother. He's developmentally disabled. You're not equipped to care for him and pursue chess at this level. Then I'll quit chess." Victor had looked at her like she'd just announced plans to jump off a building. "You can't quit chess. You're 17 years old with international master status. You could be the youngest female grandmaster in history by 19. You'll throw that away for a brother who won't even understand what you've sacrificed." She'd left his apartment that day and never returned. Dropped out of competitive chess. Got a job at a 24-hour diner. Rented a studio apartment she could barely afford. Tried to care for Marcus with no money, no support, no idea what she was doing. It lasted 4 years. 4 years of Marcus getting bigger, more difficult to manage, needing more help than she could provide. 4 years of losing jobs because she had to leave mid-shift for Marcus's emergencies. 4 years of eviction notices and social worker visits and judgment from people who thought she was selfish for trying to keep her family together. The state took Marcus when she lost their apartment for the 3rd time. Declared her housing unstable. Placed Marcus in a group home. Gave Naomi supervised visitation rights. She'd lost him anyway. Just like Victor said she would. Except Victor had been wrong about one thing. Marcus did understand what she'd sacrificed. He'd cried when they took him away. Begged her not to let them separate them. And she'd been powerless to stop it. That was 6 years ago. She hadn't seen Marcus since. The state said her housing instability made visits inadvisable. By the time she tried to re-establish contact, Marcus had been moved to a different facility. They wouldn't tell her where. And now Victor, the man who'd forced that impossible choice, who'd valued chess greatness over human connection, wanted her to play in his tournament. Win his money. Pretend the past 11 years hadn't happened. Naomi looked at the $10,000 check in her hand. She could cash it. Disappear. Victor would never find her again if she didn't want to be found. Or she could do something else. She could take Victor's money and use it to find Marcus. He'd be 21 now. An adult. Free from state control. Somewhere in this city, her brother existed, and she'd spent 6 years too broken and poor to search for him properly. $10,000 could hire a private investigator. Could pay for databases and record searches and whatever else it took. And if she won Victor's tournament, $500,000, she'd have enough to build a real life. Maybe even make up for lost time with Marcus if he'd forgive her. Subscribe now because Naomi's about to make a decision that changes everything. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Naomi folded the check carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she pulled out her phone, a cracked Android she'd bought at a pawn shop for $30, and called the number printed at the bottom of Victor's note. He answered on the first ring. Naomi. I'll play in your tournament, she said, her voice flat. But not because I forgive you. And not because I want to come back to chess. I need that prize money to find my brother. The brother you told me to abandon. Silence on the other end. Then, I was wrong about that. I've regretted it for 11 years. Your regret doesn't fix what you broke. No. But perhaps your victory can. Victor's voice was sad, old, tired. The tournament is next Saturday. 7 p.m. I'll text you the address tomorrow. Come prepared to play like you used to. I don't play like I used to. I'm not that girl anymore. Good, Victor said. That girl was brilliant. But the woman you've become survived 11 years of hell. That makes you dangerous. He hung up before Naomi could respond. She sat in the shelter common room for another hour, staring at the envelope, thinking about choices and consequences and the price of genius nobody talks about. Finally, she pulled out her phone again and searched for private investigators in Manhattan. The first 3 websites looked expensive. The 4th had payment plans. She called. Made an appointment for the next morning. Said she was looking for her brother and had money for a retainer. It felt like the first real decision she'd made in 6 years. Not survival. Not desperation. But actual choice with actual purpose. That evening, she returned to the Greenwich Chess Club. Not to play. Just to watch through the windows. Carter Whitmore was there, playing someone Naomi didn't recognize. He was losing. Badly. Good. She was turning to leave when her phone buzzed. Text from Victor's number. Tournament location, Carter Whitmore's penthouse. 432, Park Avenue. He's hosting. Bought in for $100,000. Very eager to prove he's not the player you embarrassed on the sidewalk. Naomi stared at the message. Then started laughing. Actually laughing, loud enough that a passing couple gave her concerned looks. Of course. Of course Carter was hosting. Of course this tournament would be at the penthouse of the man she'd humiliated. Of course Victor had arranged maximum drama. A second text came through. He doesn't know you're invited yet. I thought the surprise would be motivating. Naomi typed back, you're a sadistic old man. Victor's response, I'm a chess player. Same thing. Against her better judgment, Naomi smiled. Maybe this tournament would be more than just money. Maybe it would be revenge too. The sweet, calculated kind that only chess players truly understood. Carter Whitmore's penthouse occupied the entire 47th floor of 432 Park Avenue, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan like the city belonged to him. Naomi stood in a marble lobby entrance Saturday evening, wearing the only clean clothes she owned, jeans and a sweater bought from a Goodwill with some of Victor's money. The doorman had already tried to turn her away twice until Victor himself came down to escort her up. "You cleaned up," Victor said as the private elevator climbed. "Don't mistake clean clothes for forgiveness," Naomi replied. The elevator opened directly into Carter's penthouse. The space was obscene, modern art on the walls worth more than some people's houses, a grand piano nobody played, leather furniture arranged around a central area where 8 chess tables had been set up in a circle. 50 people mingled with champagne glasses, all of them dripping wealth, tailored suits, designer dresses, jewelry that caught the light with every movement. The spectators had each paid $50,000 just to attend and watch. Carter stood at the center of it all, holding court. When he saw Victor enter with Naomi, his smile froze. "Victor," Carter said slowly, his voice carrying across the room. "Please tell me this is a joke." "This is Naomi Pierce," Victor announced. "Your 8th competitor." The room went quiet. Heads turned. Someone whispered, "Is that the homeless woman from the video?" Carter's face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, calculation, before settling on a mask of magnanimous amusement. "Well. This is unexpected. Victor, you didn't mention you were bringing charity cases." "I didn't mention her because I wanted to see your face when she walked in," Victor said. "Consider it payment for that video you posted. The one where you mock her. Still has 50,000 views." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Carter's jaw tightened. "Fine. She can play." Carter gestured broadly. "Tonight's Cinderella story. The homeless chess hustler versus Manhattan's finest players. This should be entertaining. If powerful people ever underestimated you, what did you do? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from." Naomi surveyed the other 7 players. All men. All expensively dressed. 3 she recognized from chess databases, former state champions, players with legitimate ratings over 2,200. The other 4 were wealthy amateurs with enough money to hire private coaches. The youngest was a tech entrepreneur named Preston Vale, 25, made his millions in cryptocurrency, wore designer streetwear that probably cost more than a car. He was setting up a phone on a tripod pointed at his chess table. "You're live streaming?" Victor frowned. 20,000 followers waiting for content, Preston said. "I told them I'm playing in an exclusive tournament tonight. They want to see me dominate." His eyes landed on Naomi. "Oh, perfect. I'm playing the homeless lady first round. This is gold. Chat's going to love this." Naomi said nothing. Just took her seat across from Preston at table 4. The live-stream chat was visible on Preston's phone screen, scrolling faster than Naomi could read. But she caught glimpses, "No way he's playing an actual homeless person," and "This feels exploitative," and "Easy content lol." Carter stood at the center of the room, champagne glass raised. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Manhattan Invitational. 8 players. 5 rounds. Winner takes $500,000. Losers get an excellent story about the night they almost won." He paused for laughs. "Current Vegas odds have me at 3-1 favorite. Preston at 4-1. Our mysterious newcomer." He looked directly at Naomi. "Well. Let's just say nobody's taking bets on miracles." More laughter. Naomi felt eyes on her from every direction. Spectators positioning themselves to watch her game specifically. Phones recording. This wasn't about chess for them. It was about watching someone out of place fail spectacularly. Preston started his live stream commentary. "All right chat, first round against, I'm sorry, what's your name?" "Naomi." "Right, Naomi. She hustled Carter outside his chess club last week. One game. Probably got lucky. Let's see if she's got anything real. He cracked his knuckles dramatically. I'm going to go easy at first. Let her feel like she has a chance. They started. Preston played aggressively from move 1, the London system, with an early bishop aggression that announced he wanted a quick, flashy game for his audience. Naomi responded with quiet precision. Nothing spectacular. Just solid moves that neutralized Preston's aggression piece by piece. By move 10, Preston's commentary had shifted. Okay, she actually knows theory. That's interesting. But theory only takes you so far. Once we're out of book moves, talent separates from memorization. Move 15. Naomi sacrificed a pawn, opening a line toward Preston's king that he didn't see coming. Preston took the pawn confidently. Free material. Never turn down free material, chat. 3 moves later, he realized the pawn was poisoned. Taking it had allowed Naomi's pieces to coordinate in a way that trapped his king in the center of the board. His knights were out of position. His rooks couldn't defend properly. Wait, Preston stared at the board. She's got a forced attack. How did I not see this? Naomi moved her bishop. Check. Preston blocked with his knight. Only legal move. Naomi took the knight with her queen. Check again. Preston's king ran. Naomi's rook swung across the board. Check once more. Checkmate in 2, someone in the crowd said. He's finished. Preston saw it. His face went red. His livestream chat was exploding with messages he couldn't even read. 23 moves. Complete demolition. He tipped his king over in resignation. GG. Good game. Naomi nodded once and stood up. The room was silent except for the murmur of Preston's live stream where he was trying to explain to his followers how he'd just been destroyed by someone they'd expected him to humiliate. Round 2 started 30 minutes later. Naomi faced a retired state champion named Douglas Chen, a man in his 60s who'd been playing competitive chess for 40 years. He lasted 19 moves. Round 3, a corporate lawyer named Mitchell who'd hired a grandmaster coach for 6 months preparing for this tournament. 26 moves. Resignation. Subscribe now because the stakes just got deadly serious. Where are you watching from? Comment below. By round 4, nobody was laughing anymore. The spectators crowded around Naomi's games, analyzing her moves in hushed whispers. Chess experts in the crowd were pulling up databases on their phones, trying to figure out where she'd learned these unorthodox strategies. Carter wasn't smiling anymore. He was pacing near the windows, watching Naomi dismantle his tournament bracket with surgical precision. Round 4 opponent, a hedge fund manager named Philip Westbrook who'd won 3 regional championships. Strong tactical player. Excellent endgame technique. Naomi beat him in 20 moves with a queen sacrifice that looked insane until the forced checkmate revealed itself 4 moves later. 4 rounds. 4 victories. 0 games longer than 26 moves. Naomi had advanced to the semi-finals without anyone coming close to challenging her. Victor watched from the corner of the room with an expression that mixed pride and sadness. He'd always known what she could be. Now everyone else was learning. As Naomi walked toward the refreshment table, exhausted but focused, she overheard Carter talking to someone near the bathroom hallway. She stopped just out of sight, listening. She's going to win, Carter said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. I can't let that happen. A homeless black woman taking $500,000 from my tournament. The media would destroy me. The club would never let me forget it. What are you going to do? The other voice was unfamiliar. Semi-finals are tomorrow morning. I have 12 hours to figure something out. Maybe we disqualify her on a technicality. Maybe her next opponent plays with some assistance. That's cheating. That's pragmatism, Carter snapped. I didn't spend 100,000 hosting this tournament to become a punchline in chess forums. Find Dmitri. Tell him I need to talk to him tonight. Private. Footsteps approached. Naomi quickly moved toward the refreshment table, pretending she'd heard nothing. But her hands trembled slightly as she poured water into a glass. She'd known men like Carter her entire life. Men who saw women, especially poor black women, as obstacles to remove rather than equals to respect. She'd beaten 4 of them tonight on the chessboard. But tomorrow, they wouldn't be playing fair anymore. And Naomi had no idea how to fight an opponent who was willing to cheat. The semifinals began at 10 the next morning. Naomi had spent the night at the shelter, lying awake on her cot, replaying Carter's overheard conversation in her mind. By dawn, she'd made a decision: if they were going to cheat, she'd have to expose them so publicly that denying it became impossible. She arrived at Carter's penthouse at 9:30 wearing the same clothes as yesterday. The spectators were already there, fewer now, maybe 30 people, but these were the serious chess enthusiasts who'd stayed to watch the endgame. Her semi-final opponent was already seated at table 1, Dmitry Volkov. Stone-faced Russian player in his 40s, rated 2350, known in chess circles for psychological warfare and glacially slow play designed to exhaust opponents. Victor caught Naomi's eye from across the room and shook his head slightly. A warning. He'd noticed something too. Carter stood at the center again, but his energy was different today. Controlled. Calculated. Semi-finals. Winner advances to play yours truly in the finals this afternoon. Mr. Volkov, Ms. Pierce, best of luck. Naomi sat down across from Dmitri. He didn't acknowledge her, just stared at the board with the expression of a man performing tedious work. They started. Naomi played her usual opening, king's pawn forward 2 squares. Dmitri responded with the Caro-Kann defense, a solid but unambitious opening that suggested he was playing for a draw. But something felt wrong immediately. Dmitri took nearly 8 minutes on his second move. Not thinking, Naomi watched his eyes. He wasn't analyzing the board. He was staring slightly past it, like he was listening to something. Then his hand moved. Bishop to f5. A perfectly reasonable move. But Dmitri had shown no indication he was actually calculating it. Naomi glanced around subtly. Carter was standing near the windows, phone in hand, thumb moving across the screen. Every few minutes, Dmitri would glance briefly in Carter's direction, then make a move. They were signaling. Using computer analysis fed through some kind of communication device. If you caught someone cheating but had no proof, what would you do? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Naomi made her next move quickly. Knight to f6. Standard development. Dmitri stared at the board for 7 minutes. Finally moved his knight to d7. That confirmed it. 7 minutes to find a move that any decent player would see in 30 seconds. Dmitri wasn't thinking. He was waiting for instructions. Naomi's mind raced. She could accuse them now, but without hard evidence, Carter would deny everything. He'd claim she was paranoid, desperate, trying to cheat her way out of a losing position. With his money and reputation, he'd win that argument. She needed proof they couldn't deny. So she did something brilliant. She started playing moves that computer analysis would recommend but that made no strategic sense to human intuition. Move 8, Naomi pushed her h-pawn forward 2 squares. Objectively fine according to chess engines, but weird. No clear purpose. No human would play it in this position without deep calculation showing a specific tactical point. Dmitri spent 9 minutes staring at the board. Then played the exact move a chess engine would recommend in response, developing his bishop to e7 even though it blocked his own pieces awkwardly. The experienced players in the crowd started murmuring. "That's a computer move," someone whispered. "No human plays that position that way." Victor was watching intently now, his eyes narrowed. Naomi continued her plan. Move 12. She sacrificed a pawn in a way that looked terrible for her but actually set a trap that no computer would see because the trap required understanding human psychology, not calculation. Any human player would have taken the pawn. It looked free. It looked like Naomi was cracking under pressure. Dmitri stared at it for 11 minutes. Then took the pawn. Exactly as the computer would recommend. And walked straight into Naomi's trap. She moved her knight to an apparently random square. The crowd murmured in confusion. It looked like a blunder, moving a piece for no reason. Dmitri waited for his next instruction. 7 minutes passed. Finally, he moved his queen to the center of the board, attacking Naomi's bishop. Naomi took 3 seconds to make her next move. Queen sacrifice. She literally threw her queen into enemy territory where Dmitri could capture it for free. The crowd gasped. Even the casual observers knew you didn't just give away your queen. But Victor understood. His face broke into a slow smile. Dmitri stared at the sacrificed queen like it might explode. He glanced at Carter, who was frantically typing on his phone. 12 minutes passed, the longest think time yet. Finally, Dmitri took the queen. Because the computer said it was winning. Because the computer calculated material advantage and positional superiority. What the computer didn't calculate was the forced checkmate Naomi had buried in the position. A checkmate that required no queen, just perfect coordination of her remaining pieces in a pattern too long for standard engine analysis to see. Subscribe now because this gets insane. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Naomi moved her rook. Check. Dmitri's king moved. Only legal option. Naomi moved her bishop. Check. Dmitri blocked with his knight. Naomi took the knight with her remaining knight. Check. Dmitri's king ran to the corner. Naomi moved her rook again. Checkmate. The crowd exploded. Not just applause, shock. People were standing, pointing at the board, trying to understand how Naomi had just delivered checkmate without her queen against a player rated 300 points higher than most club champions. Victor stood and pointed at Dmitri. He's been using computer assistance. Phone in his pocket. Receiving moves from Carter. I've been watching for 20 minutes. It's obvious. Carter's face went white. That's absurd. You have no proof. Check his pockets, Victor demanded. Now. Or I walk out and take my reputation with me. Every chess publication will know you hosted a rigged tournament. The crowd turned on Carter immediately. Voices rose. Check his pockets. I knew something was off. I paid $50,000 to watch fair games. Security moved toward Dmitri. He stood abruptly, chair scraping backward. His hand went to his jacket pocket, then stopped. Show us, Victor said quietly. Or I make one phone call and your penthouse tournament becomes international news for all the wrong reasons. Dmitri slowly pulled out a small earpiece. Wireless. Expensive. Designed to be invisible. The room erupted in accusations and anger. Carter tried to talk over them. This is ridiculous. Dmitri acted alone. I had no idea he was. Your phone, Naomi said, speaking for the first time all morning. Her voice cut through the chaos. Show everyone your phone. The one you've been typing on all game. Let them see what you were sending. Carter's hand tightened around his phone. This is private property. Show them. Victor's voice was ice. The crowd pressed closer. Carter was trapped, dozens of witnesses, all of them wealthy chess enthusiasts who'd paid money for legitimate competition, all of them now staring at him with contempt. Finally, Carter unlocked his phone. Held up the screen. Chess engine analysis. Move-by-move recommendations. Messages sent to a contact labeled simply D, with move notations timestamped throughout the game. Proof. Undeniable proof. Someone in the crowd was already recording. This is going everywhere. You're done, Carter. Carter's face transformed from defensive to cornered to dangerous. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I fed Dimitri moves. Because this tournament was never about fair play. It was about maintaining order. About making sure the right kind of people win. And she, he pointed at Naomi, is not the right kind of person to walk out of here with $500,000. The silence was absolute. I worked for everything I have, Carter continued, his voice rising. I earned my place. She's a homeless nobody who got lucky once on a sidewalk. You want me to just hand her $500,000 because she memorized some chess moves? In what world is that justice? In a world where talent matters more than money, Victor said quietly. Which apparently isn't your world. Carter looked around at the faces staring at him, the spectators, the players, even Dimitri who'd backed away like Carter was contagious. Tournament's over, someone said. Carter's disqualified. Dimitri's disqualified. That means Naomi advances to finals by default. Against who? Another voice asked. Carter was supposed to play finals. Everyone turned to Victor. The old grandmaster looked at Naomi. Something passed between them, all the history, all the pain, all the years of separation and regret. I'll play her, Victor said. Finals. 1 hour from now. Winner takes everything. Naomi met his eyes. The man who'd trained her. Who'd forced an impossible choice. Who'd been right that she couldn't have both chess greatness and family responsibility, but wrong about which one mattered more. One game, Naomi agreed. For all of it. Carter was already being escorted out by security, his protests fading down the hallway. But Naomi barely noticed. Because in 1 hour, she'd faced the only opponent who'd ever truly understood her gift. And only one of them would walk away with the future Naomi desperately needed. Naomi spent the hour before finals in Carter's bathroom, staring at herself in a mirror that probably cost more than 6 months of her old rent. Her reflection looked like a stranger. Hollow cheeks from too many skipped meals. Gray patches in her hair she'd never noticed before, stress aging her faster than time. Eyes that had witnessed poverty's slow violence, the kind that steals dignity piece by piece until you forget what having worth felt like. This wasn't the face of the girl in Victor's trophy photo, the 16-year-old prodigy holding that massive trophy with a smile that believed the future was limitless. This was someone who'd survived 11 years of homelessness, minimum wage jobs that went nowhere, eviction notices, social workers' pitying looks, and the particular shame of being brilliant at something that couldn't pay rent. But underneath the exhaustion and trauma, something else stared back. The chess player who dismantled 4 opponents in one night without breaking a sweat. The prodigy who'd never really disappeared, just hidden, waiting, surviving until the moment she could prove that talent doesn't disappear just because circumstances try to bury it. A knock on the bathroom door. 5 minutes, Ms. Pierce. Finals are starting. Naomi splashed cold water on her face, straightened her thrift store sweater, and walked out into her future. The penthouse had transformed during the break. Carter's expensive furniture, Italian leather sofas, abstract sculptures, the grand piano nobody actually played, had been pushed against the walls. The 8 chess tables reduced to 1, positioned at the exact center of the room like a boxing ring, like an arena where only one gladiator would walk out alive. Every remaining spectator pressed close, forming a tight circle. Phones out. Cameras ready. They knew they were about to witness something rare. Viktor Sokolov sat on one side of the table, 70 years old but still radiating the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent 5 decades mastering chess. He'd beaten grandmasters half his age last year. He'd written 3 books on endgame theory that competitive players studied like scripture. He trained 5 international masters and 2 grandmasters. And 11 years ago, he trained Naomi Pierce. She sat down across from him, and for a moment, they just looked at each other, teacher and student, past and present, everything that had been lost and everything that might still be possible. "Before we start," Victor said quietly, his voice pitched so only Naomi could hear over the murmuring crowd, "I want you to know something. When you walked away 11 years ago, chose your brother over competitive chess, I thought you'd made the biggest mistake of your life. Throwing away generational talent for familial obligation that would drain you dry." He paused, his weathered hands resting beside the board. "I was wrong. You made the only choice you could live with. That takes more strength than chess genius. I've spent 11 years regretting that I couldn't see that. Don't try to make peace with me now," Naomi said, her voice harder than she intended. "Not when I'm about to take everything from you. Not when $500,000 is the only thing standing between me and finding my brother." Victor's expression shifted to something like sadness mixed with pride. "I'm not making peace. I'm acknowledging reality. You were always going to be better than me, Naomi. Even at 16, I knew that. I was just hoping you'd wait until I was too old to care about being surpassed." He placed his hand on the chess clock. "Shall we?" Naomi placed her hand on her side of the clock. "Let's finish what we started 11 years ago." They pressed the clock simultaneously. Victor played king's pawn to e4. Classical. Confident. The opening of champions. Naomi responded with the Sicilian defense, c5, the same opening Carter had tried, the same opening she'd demolished him with. But she knew Victor wouldn't fall into the same traps. He'd invented half of them. For the first 15 moves, they danced through opening theory both of them knew by heart. Victor's pieces flowed into natural positions with the ease of long practice. Naomi's pieces responded with precision, each move answering Victor's threats while creating subtle problems of her own. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Even the people who barely understood chess could sense they were witnessing something special, 2 minds operating at a level most players only dreamed about. Move 16, Victor broke from standard theory, pushing his knight to an unusual square that created immediate pressure on Naomi's position. Naomi paused. This was new territory. No database to reference. No memorized lines. Just raw calculation and pattern recognition against a man who'd been playing chess since before she was born. She moved her bishop, creating counterplay on the opposite side of the board. Victor smiled slightly. Good. She'd seen the imbalance. She'd understood that defending was losing, the only chance was to create her own threats. By move 23, the position had become incredibly complex. Victor's pieces aimed at Naomi's kingside like artillery positioning for an assault. Naomi's pieces controlled the center but lacked coordination, like an army with excellent ground but no communication between units. Victor sacrificed a knight. Just lifted it off the board and placed it in the middle of Naomi's position, offering it for free. The crowd gasped. Several spectators started whispering excitedly, certain they'd just seen the game-winning blow. But Naomi stared at the sacrificed knight and saw the trap underneath. Taking it would open a diagonal for Victor's rook. 3 moves later, that rook would invade her position and begin a devastating attack she couldn't stop. If you had one chance to change your entire life, would you take it? Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. She declined the sacrifice. Pushed her pawn forward instead, creating immediate threats against Victor's king on the opposite side of the board. Victor's eyes flickered with something that looked like approval. She'd rejected the temptation. Good. That's what he'd trained her to do, see past the surface, calculate the consequence 3 moves deep. They traded pieces methodically over the next 20 moves. Rooks exchanged in the center. Knights disappearing in tactical sequences. The complexity reducing but the tension somehow increasing, like a symphony building toward its crescendo by stripping away instruments until only the essential melody remained. By move 47, they'd reached an endgame, Victor with king, light-squared bishop, and 4 pawns. Naomi with king, knight, and 4 pawns. The position was theoretically drawn with perfect play. But theory assumed equal skill and equal understanding. Viktor Sokolov had studied endgames for 50 years. He'd written an entire chapter in his second book about exactly this type of position, knight versus bishop with equal pawns. He started pushing his pawns forward with mechanical precision, each move restricting Naomi's knight's mobility, slowly creating weaknesses in her pawn structure that would eventually become fatal. Naomi defended desperately, her knight dancing across the board, stopping immediate threats, sacrificing tempo to prevent Victor's pawns from becoming unstoppable. Move 58, Victor stopped his clock and extended his hand across the board. "Draw," he said. "Not a question. An offer. We split the prize. 250,000 each. You get your money to find Marcus. I keep my reputation. Everyone wins. This position is likely drawn anyway with perfect play." The crowd murmured with excitement. It was generous. Fair. The endgame was brutally difficult, and neither player could guarantee victory. Naomi stared at Victor's extended hand hovering in the space between them. $250,000 would change her life completely. Would let her hire the best private investigator in New York. Would give her an apartment, stability, the foundation to rebuild everything she'd lost. It would be smart. Practical. The logical choice. But it wouldn't be hers. Not fully. It would be half of something. Shared victory with the man who'd forced her to choose between family and greatness. Compromise with someone who'd never compromised for her when she'd needed it most. "No," Naomi said quietly. Victor withdrew his hand slowly, his expression unreadable. "Then we play to the end. Winner takes everything." "Winner takes everything," Naomi agreed. They continued. Victor pushed his pawns more aggressively now, no longer offering draws, committed to the fight. His bishop controlled key squares. His king marched forward like a general leading troops into battle. Naomi's knight worked overtime, blocking, defending, sacrificing tempo to stop immediate threats while desperately trying to create counterplay. Move 63, Naomi saw something. A pattern buried deep in the position, visible only if you calculated 20 moves ahead with perfect accuracy. A way to sacrifice her knight, not for immediate advantage, but to create a pawn race where Victor's king would be exactly one move too slow to stop her. She lifted her knight, her hand trembling slightly. This was it. The move that would either win her everything or lose her everything. The move that would prove she'd been right to refuse Victor's draw offer, or reveal that pride had cost her $250,000. She placed the knight on the sacrifice square. Subscribe now because what happens next defines everything. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Victor stared at the board for 3 full minutes, his experienced eyes calculating variations, checking for tricks, searching for the flaw in Naomi's plan. Finally, his face transformed. Shock melted into understanding, understanding into something that looked like pride mixed with resignation. "I don't see the win," he admitted slowly, his voice carrying respect. "But I trust that you do. That's what made you special, Naomi. You always saw 3 moves further than everyone else." He captured the knight. Because he had to. Because any other move was immediately losing. Naomi pushed her passed pawn forward. 1 square. 2 squares. Marching toward promotion. Victor's king raced to stop it, but that meant abandoning defense of his own position. Naomi's other pawns advanced. Victor had to deal with multiple threats simultaneously, and his pieces couldn't be in 2 places at once. He tried desperately. Pushed his own pawns in a last-ditch counterattack, hoping to promote before Naomi. But she'd calculated everything, every variation, every defensive try, every desperate attempt. The 11 years of poverty hadn't dulled her gift. They'd sharpened it. Turned chess from a game into survival, and survival was something Naomi Pierce knew more intimately than anyone in this room. Move 76. Naomi's pawn reached the 8th rank. She placed a queen on the board, a queen Victor had no answer for. Victor stared at the position for 10 seconds, then tipped his king over in resignation. The penthouse exploded. Spectators jumping, voices overlapping, people pulling out phones, already texting friends about witnessing chess history, the homeless prodigy defeating a grandmaster in the finals of an underground tournament that would be analyzed and discussed and mythologized for years. But Naomi heard none of it. Because the penthouse door had opened behind the crowd. And a young black man in his 20s stood there, escorted by building security, looking confused and overwhelmed by the celebration happening inside. "Excuse me," he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "I'm looking for Naomi Pierce. Someone called me and said she was here. I'm Marcus. I'm her brother." The room went silent. Time stopped moving forward. Or maybe it jumped backward 11 years to the moment Naomi had last held her brother, promising him everything would be okay even though she had no idea how to make that true. Naomi stood slowly, her legs shaky, chess pieces scattering across the expensive board as her hand accidentally hit them. She stared at the man in the doorway, taller than she remembered, older than seemed possible, wearing clean clothes and looking healthy and whole. "Marcus?" Her voice cracked. "How did you find me?" Marcus took a hesitant step into the room, surrounded by wealthy strangers in a penthouse he had no business being in. "Private investigator called me 3 days ago. Said someone hired him to track me down. Said my sister was looking for me." His eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know if it was real. Didn't know if you'd actually want to see me after I got taken away. After you couldn't keep me." Naomi crossed the room without conscious thought. The spectators parted automatically, creating a path between sister and brother, past and present, everything that had been lost and everything that might still be saved. She wrapped her arms around Marcus, not the 14-year-old boy she remembered, but a grown man who'd survived the foster system she'd feared would destroy him. "I never stopped looking," she whispered into his shoulder. "I never stopped wanting you back. Every day. Every single day for 6 years." Marcus held her tight, and she felt him shaking. "I know. The investigator showed me the money transfer. $10,000. Every cent you had. You spent everything trying to find me. You were worth more than everything. You were worth more than chess, more than money, more than anything Victor ever offered me." They stood there in Carter Whitmore's penthouse, surrounded by wealthy spectators who'd paid $50,000 to watch a chess tournament and instead witnessed something infinitely more valuable, a family torn apart by poverty and circumstance finding itself again through sheer stubborn love. Victor approached quietly, his grandmaster's posture somehow humbled. "The prize money will be transferred to your account Monday morning. $500,000. Naomi pulled back from Marcus but kept holding his hand, terrified he'd disappear if she let go. "Keep it." Victor blinked in genuine shock. "What?" "Keep the money. All of it. Use it to fund chess programs for kids who can't afford lessons. Kids like I was. Kids who have talent but no path forward because chess costs money nobody told them about. Naomi, that's $500,000. I don't need it anymore." Naomi looked at Marcus, really looked at him, seeing the man he'd become despite every obstacle. "I found what I was looking for. Money can't buy this." Victor's eyes filled with tears, actual tears from a 70-year-old grandmaster who thought he was too old and experienced to cry. "You're absolutely certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." A slow smile crossed Victor's weathered face. "Then I'll match it. $1 million. We'll call it the Naomi Pierce Chess Foundation. We'll teach kids that talent isn't determined by wealth. That brilliance exists in every economic class. We'll start next month. And you'll help me run it. Naomi laughed through her tears. I don't know the first thing about running a foundation. But you know everything about surviving impossible circumstances and still playing perfect chess. That's what we'll teach them. The crowd erupted again, this time not in celebration of victory, but in recognition of something that transcended winning and losing, something that reminded every wealthy person in that room that money wasn't the most valuable thing in the world. 6 months later, Naomi Pierce stood outside the Greenwich Chess Club where everything had begun. But she wasn't sitting on cold concrete asking to play for food anymore. She was entering through the front door as a guest instructor, personally invited by the club president to teach a masterclass to their advanced students. Marcus waited beside her, now working as a social worker specializing in foster care, helping kids navigate the system that had separated him from his sister, making sure other families didn't break the way theirs had. They'd gotten an apartment together in Queens. Small. Clean. Home. 2 bedrooms so Marcus could have his own space. A kitchen table where they ate dinner together every night. A life Naomi had stopped believing was possible. She'd returned to competitive chess too, but on her own terms now. Playing in tournaments she chose. Teaching students at the foundation who reminded her of herself, brilliant kids from poor neighborhoods who nobody expected to succeed. Building the life Victor had said was impossible, chess and family, excellence and love, winning and connection existing in the same space. As she walked toward the club entrance, she passed the exact spot where she'd sat 6 months ago, begging Carter Whitmore for a meal in exchange for a game. A homeless man sat there now. Thin. Tired. Holding a cardboard sign asking for help. Naomi stopped. Pulled out her wallet. Gave him $50 in cash and a business card for the Naomi Pierce Chess Foundation. If you ever want to learn chess, she said gently, we offer free lessons. No experience required. No conditions. Just come. The man looked at the card, then at her, trying to understand if this was charity or mockery or something else entirely. It's real, Naomi said, reading his suspicion. Someone gave me a second chance when I needed it most. I'm just passing it forward. We meet Tuesday and Thursday evenings. There's food. It's warm. And you might discover you're brilliant at something you never knew existed. The man pocketed the card without speaking, but she saw hope flicker briefly in his eyes. Naomi walked into the Greenwich Chess Club with Marcus beside her, ready to teach the next generation what she'd learned the hardest possible way. That genius isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to quit when the world tells you you're worthless. That checkmate isn't the end of the game. It's the beginning of the next one. And that the most important victory isn't the one you win on the board, it's the one you win by staying human in a world designed to break you. She'd lost everything and found it again. And that, she thought as she set up the first chess board for her students, was better than any trophy.